Welcome to Future Focus, the NextGEN OD Canada podcast, your go-to source for insights and inspiration as you navigate your optometry journey.
Whether you're a student or a recent graduate in your first few years of practice, we're here to help explore the topics that matter: career paths, job opportunities, board preparation, and more.
Each month, we'll bring you expert guests and practical tips to help you thrive in the world of optometry.
And we'd like to thank our exclusive sponsor, I Recommend. I Recommend is a dynamic network of independent optometrists committed to delivering personalized, comprehensive eye care. They offer outstanding career opportunities across various optometry specialties and provide signing bonuses, mentorship programs, and access to exclusive world-class events and education. With a vast network of experts and clinics nationwide, they empower optometry students and recent graduates to build successful and rewarding careers.
So stay tuned and let's shape the future of optometry together on Future Focus, the NextGEN OD Canada podcast.
Welcome, guys. This is episode 1 of a new podcast.
We are so excited. Hello to my co-host.
Yeah, this is going to be really exciting. Let's tell everyone kind of what the purpose of this podcast is and kind of how it came to be. You know, Alexa and I did a presentation at the University of Waterloo for the students that were about to graduate on how to find the right job opportunities and what's the right career path for you. Obviously, there's never a right answer, but there's a lot of experiences that ourselves and other, seasoned ODs have gone through that, if we share those experiences and keep talking about them openly, it would really help you guys, the students and the new grads, to select a practice modality or a certain job with less trial and error, right? Hopefully you guys don't have to go through as much trial and error as we have in the past.
Yeah, I think we're so excited to be here and chat with you guys, on a monthly basis. And I think this is something that would have been so useful for us to have as new grads and starting our careers. And I'm really excited to jump right into episode 1 here.
Yeah. And so for episode 1, we are going to be sharing those key practice modalities in optometry. Because of course, as a student, you're really just learning your clinical care, you're gaining your knowledge and clinical skills. But where are you going to go after you graduate?
Yeah. And, it might not be one place you go. There might be a couple different places or different modalities you end up in to start.
Yeah. So we're going to have this episode be kind of the ultimate guide for what practice modalities are out there. And we've experienced some of those modalities, whether it was through externship sites, residency, and then just in our regular careers. So we'll definitely share our personal experiences and what we think the pros and cons are of each modality, just to give you guys some guidance and see if it sounds like something you'd be interested in, or if it sounds like something you would want to absolutely run away from.
Yeah, for sure. And we just want to say, don't stress about the mode you choose right away, because it's very likely you won't end up in that exact modality that you kind of start in right after school. Things will change, you'll kind of adapt, and what you want in your career might change as well.
Yeah, 100%. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first practice modality we wanted to go through was solo or group private practice. And majority of you coming out of school will end up working as an associate doctor at these practices. And private practice really just means these are clinics and offices solely owned by one or many optometrists. And, Alexa and I definitely have experience working at private practices as associates. I am also an owner or co-owner of a private practice, so we have tons of experience with it. And we found that, some of the pros of private practice could be you have a lot more autonomy, meaning you have, a lot more ability to make decisions on the way you want to practice, the way you want your schedule to work, and your patient flow to work. And you do have the opportunity for potential higher earnings and growth down the road. So for me, my mentality of a private practice is honestly slow and steady wins the race, right? You're not going to be a millionaire coming coming out of school first year in, but there's definitely a lot of room to put some elbow grease in and see a lot of rewards down the road.
Well, we both ended up here.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I did start right away kind of working in at least one private practice setting. I knew in my mind it was somewhere I wanted to be. I just didn't know if it would give me enough earning potential at the beginning to kind of pay what I needed to pay, right? So I had to find a balance with some of the other modalities we'll talk about just in order to kind of get by at the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, no, I did the exact same thing as you, Alexa. When I came out of residency, my first job was a private practice as an associate part-time. And then I was in another modality part-time as well. And that's going to be a lot of you guys. It is very normal to have multiple part-time locations instead of a full-time, but there are lots of opportunities out there for full-time work. But sometimes it's kind of nice to work in different practices throughout the week, right? Because then you get to dip your toes in different things. And I felt the exact same way. So, on a lot of people's minds, one of the cons of private practice might be that financial risk, right? So you're not making a lot of money right off the bat when you go in. Some of the practices might not give you a heavy patient schedule right away. They kind of come in and they're like, we want you here long term. Why don't you start building your own patient base here so that, you develop that personal relationship with your patients? And in year one, that sucks. Like your schedule is so quiet, so slow. You're not making a lot of money. I am 4 years into being an associate at that same practice. And my schedule is full and, for a month or two out. And I'm seeing those patients back now. And I'm seeing the kids 4 years in a row. I'm seeing that relationship being built with them. So but definitely as a student, when you got bills to pay and you got other life decisions to make, that could definitely be something that might hold you back. Is you're not going to get those finances up and running very quickly in a practice setting.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think something that kind of led me to private practice and led me to be where I am today, which is full time at a private practice as an associate, is truly the culture and being able to work with an OD owner. I feel like I have more input into decisions that are being made and, having the opportunity to grow a specific specialty within that optometry clinic, which is so nice.
Yes. We'll go into that. Oh my God, there's so much for us to say.
I know.
We're going to try to make this a short episode, but there's so much to say. When you bring up specialties and things like that, that is the difference between a private independent practice versus another sort of practice modality. If you want to bring in some sort of a specialty or be a part of a specialty, I find that you're able to do that in different clinic settings. But in a private practice setting, you get that mentorship from the OD owner. You get the mentorship every day. You get time to go to their office, drop by their exam room, text them and be like, can I learn more from you? Can I get help with this case? I find that when you work in other settings, like in, a more retail setting, you still work with other ODs, but I don't know if that mentorship opportunity is always there. And that definitely I find could be a pro if you want to learn more about a specialty area in optometry in a private practice setting.
Yeah. And I think too, just to touch on that, like coming out of school, it's, you're just trying to get through the exam. I just remember being so petrified. Like
you're just trying to live.
It's crazy imposter syndrome. I have no idea if, I'm treating, diagnosing, prescribing correctly. And so to have another OD there with you where you can bounce ideas off of them, just for comfort even, I think is a huge pro. I do think sometimes like when you're thrown in and you don't have that mentorship, it does force you to kind of do it on your own, which is also nice. And I kind of had both of those scenarios where in one of my practices, I did feel like I was the only one there, got to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I can, message someone later. But then when you are there with someone, it's so nice. And I feel like that's the way you learn.
Oh, 100%. And it builds your confidence up too, because then when you were panicking about something and you ask the associate OD working with you right there, they give you the same answer you were already thinking. And then you're like, okay, no, I know my stuff. I know it.
For sure. Yeah.
And I guess the last thing I want to throw in about private practice, which I understand a lot of students out there would probably never have this in their mind, but you also have the opportunity to open your own practice straight out of school.
Yeah.
And again, we just talked about imposter syndrome. So that might be one reason, aside from finances, as to why people wouldn't want to open right away. I know some students personally who did open their own practice right away after school, and they're successful. Don't worry, they did not fall flat on their face. I never wanted to open my own practice. When I was in school, I thought, you know what? Learning these clinical skills is hard enough. I do not want the responsibility of owning my own practice. Never, never, ever, ever. And I'm a practice owner. I became a practice owner 3 years out of residency. It's scary to think about how much it costs to open a practice, but I just want to throw it out there for anyone who might want to look into it. Banks are so forgiving and so trustworthy of doctors. I heard that in optometry school, and now I've been through it myself, and it is so true. Even if you have student loans that are more than 200, 300,000, you can still get a loan to open your business, because these are two separate things. And the banks know that you're in medical care. Your office will thrive because people need
you
eye care all the time. They need you. So finance-wise, you guys can totally open a private practice on your own. It's great to seek like a practice consultant that could help you work through it. Again, iRecommend is our sponsor, and I work with iRecommend, to open my practice. And, there's a lot of support out there. So I know it's not anything on students' minds probably right now, but it is something good to throw in there because I never thought I'd be in that situation, and I'm here and I'm loving it. So it's great.
Yeah. Your life can change.
Yes.
Okay. I think let's jump in to kind of our next modality, which is corporate optometry. And, to me, this encompasses a few different kinds of areas within optometry. We do want to touch upon those buy-in groups such as FYI and Iris. And then also, you have your Clearly, your Bailey Nelson, your Warby Parker, the list goes on, Costco, LensCrafters. There's so many opportunities out there, and you've all probably been poached already. Yeah. I mean, I've heard some crazy things, but first year students are getting poached to work at these clinics. And
oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
Holy moly. Wow. They work fast. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get it. You're like, you come into school. How nice would it be if by the end of your first year, you have your job set?
Yeah.
But also you change so much.
Yes. But that does put a lot of ease. I would say a pro for corporate optometry settings is really that ease of mind. Like there's so many job opportunities out there. There's no way you're going to come out of school unemployed, because corporate is definitely growing and they are always looking for more associates to add on. And on the finance side, on the income side, often corporate settings are pretty busy right from the get-go. So you're most likely to have more of a steady income, right? And yes, you want to pay off your loans, but you want to budget for other things like getting a car, getting engaged or married, or having a kid, anything like that, and getting a home. And so it is nice when you want to start budgeting out your finances if you know exactly kind of what your income is going to be for the year. It's very easy math. compared to, being in a private practice setting where you're not sure how much you're going to make each day.
It ebbs and flows.
Yeah. And as a new grad, that is definitely a huge pro for corporate optometry. I also find that another pro is, well, I guess it depends because some corporate settings are quite large. So you do still work with other ODs. And I did at one of the corporate settings that I was in. So you get a little bit of that mentorship if you need to. But I would actually say a pro for corporate is most of the time you're there by yourself and you're thrown in the fire.
Yeah.
It not in a negative way. It does make you stronger. You get over that imposter syndrome after your first shift because you have to.
Yeah.
There's no other choice. So it does make you grow up a little bit faster, and it makes you more confident in your skills because there's no other option.
Yeah.
You got to be confident in what you're doing. So you do grow pretty quickly there.
And I would say your efficiency increases as well because you're booking, every 15 to 20 minutes in my experience.
Yep.
So although, you might not be seeing a lot of disease heavy cases, you're refracting quite quickly. And I felt like in a corporate setting, my skills there improved.
Yeah.
So there's definitely pros. And, I started off not in a corporate setting. And then I ended up kind of joining a corporate setting probably around halfway through my first year in practice, just because I wanted that stability of income at least a couple days a week. And I just remember hearing the daily minimum being like, wow.
I know. As a student, when you have nothing, you're eating ramen noodles and you're like, I can buy chicken for dinner.
Yeah. You're like,
you're so happy.
So excited. And then looking back now, I'm like, really? I accepted that.
Yeah. I know. It's crazy when your life changes and you look back at these things. But I was actually going to tag on to you, Alexa. I find that it could be a pro or con when you talk about you don't see a lot of disease in a corporate setting. I would actually argue you still see a lot of disease.
Yeah.
But the hard part, or maybe the frustrating part, is you cannot manage it as well.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of corporate settings will still let you know, oh, we have the equipment, we have a visual field, we have an OCT, we have everything. That's fine. But you might not have the time, right? So again, 15-minute eye exams, someone comes in with a BRAO or a BRVO, more of a vein occlusion, right? Less of an emergency. You want that patient to get dilated, do their OCT, do a visual field. Your schedule is so busy, you might not have time to see them that day and do that. Are they going to come back for the follow-ups? You're praying that they do. Yeah. You might end up referring out. And so it's a lot of, if you love disease and you love, managing these sort of cool cases, you might lose that opportunity just based on, the way that the practice runs.
Yeah.
But you do still see disease. Oh my goodness. At the corporate setting I was in the mall, do you know how many CRVOs I saw at the mall while people are shopping?
And people just strolling in wanting an eye exam.
All the time. People are walking with diseases, okay? You will see disease as a student. Do not worry. The question is, do you want to manage that disease? Maybe pick a different modality. Do you not want to manage the disease, aka me? Yeah, no, refer it out, send it out, and have another OD take a look at it. So yeah, it could be a pro or a con.
Yeah, I think for me too, you kind of touched upon this, but I never really felt like I was seeing my follow-ups back. And
me too.
I felt like I was losing them. And then thinking months later, whatever happened to that patient? I was so concerned and worried. And maybe that's because I wasn't in that setting, 5 days a week, but I still just feel like they would have gone and lost a follow-up.
100%. And I'm very into patient mentality and personality types.
Yeah.
This is something that you guys as students, once you're out in clinic, start to analyze, the way your patients interact with you. You will really start to pick up on things. When I worked in a corporate setting, what I found was, think about the person that walked into that retail optical shop, right? Like a LensCrafters, a Specsavers, a Warby Parker, whatever. That person is initially coming in probably because they want glasses or contact lenses. And so they get the eye exam. The eye exam to that patient is probably second most important, and the sale is most important. So now you've kind of disrupted their day by saying, hey, you have a CRVO. Like, I need you to go to your family doctor. I think mentally those people might just think, this is not what I came in for. I got other things going on today. I got other things to do. I just want my glasses. And I agree with you, Alexa. I did not see a lot of my follow-ups there compared to a private practice setting.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's just because it feels more like a medical office. So the patients that go there are like, I want my health checked first.
Yeah.
The rate of follow-ups at a private practice setting for me personally was much, much higher. And that made me scared because some days, I'd be panicking about that CRVO patient that didn't show up 4 times. And now I'm documenting like crazy, thinking, oh my goodness, I don't want to be sued for this.
Yeah. No, and I think too, like, you feel like they leave and they don't really remember your name as a doctor. They're like, oh, I went to Clearly for an eye exam. Yeah, I saw one of the doctors there, right?
Yes.
And so you're not forming that true connection where they're going to come back 2 years later wanting to see, Dr. Bilku. Like, it's just not there. And I feel, I don't know if I should say this, but I've had a few cases in private practice where people have sat down in my chair and I say, when was your last eye exam? And they said, well, like, I had kind of like a check, like last year, but it wasn't really a real eye exam. It was at Costco. Like,
and it probably was a great eye exam because the OD probably did a great job. But again, the patient mentally is not caring or not like, they're not focusing on the exam in those settings. So that can kind of create a negative like name for corporate optometry because of that. But honestly, these are our experiences. And I've felt that with the patients, so what I've seen is I think ODs that love, corporate settings also hopefully don't lose sleep over the fact that like if they lose, follow-up care, they've done their job. They've done a great job on their eye exam. They've documented well. They've contacted the patient.
Yeah.
And then they can go home and enjoy, whatever else is happening in the rest of their lives. And then I feel like in a private practice setting, we're constantly like, did Mr. Jones get that, referral? Is Mr. Jones going to come back? And we're constantly like biting our nails. Like, so maybe if you don't want the stress, then maybe choose corporate optometry versus private practice.
Yeah, we love the stress, right?
No, I don't love the stress, but
we thrive on stress. No.
Okay. So another practice mode is a hospital or surgical based optometry setting. We find that this is more available in surgical centers that are, ophthalmology owned, right? So there's tons of surgical centers all across Canada, and a lot of them do hire ODs to, do their pre and post-op surgical care rather than, hiring technicians. And I see more of that happening and I hear more of that happening as the year goes on. So that's amazing. And, this would be an excellent opportunity for anyone who is going to do a residency in ocular disease. And like we said, who loves not just finding ocular disease, but managing it, from beginning to end. A surgical center is probably going to be the best place for you to do it, or at an ophthalmology practice. And you get to just collaborate with them. You get to specialize, with them, and you'll just see, it's just like a residency. You will see the most rare cases, the most unique cases, things that you can talk about at the dinner table, with your family, like just cool stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely a pro for a surgical center.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like even if you didn't do a residency, if you jump right into one of these settings, you'll get a mini residency in 3 months. Like,
100%. 100%.
You will learn so much. And a part of me is like, I think I would have maybe liked a setting like this for a little bit, because it would have really brushed up my skills with ocular disease and diagnosing and treating. Having an ophthalmologist there would be nice. Although it really ultimately, I don't think is where I would want to end up. But I have a friend who's in a setting like this, and she did a scleral lens residency or a contact lens residency, and she fits sclerals, and she's doing, post-op, pre-ops, and seeing a lot of high intensity cases, and she loves it. So
yeah,
depends on your personality. Like, she can't imagine herself seeing children or doing even refractions, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so cool. That's why I love optometry. You can really do what you want to do and specialize how you want to specialize.
Yeah, I find that this is kind of what you mentioned, Alexa, like the opposite of corporate, where you said, corporate, you're really going to be focusing on refraction and probably like entry BV skills and refraction, and then general ocular health. And then the ocular disease portion, like you might not be able to utilize those skills on an everyday basis. And this is like the complete opposite, right? With the surgical center, you're most likely not really doing refraction. You're not doing entry level testing. You're just focusing on your ocular disease skills. And if you're working with an ophthalmology setting that specializes in just one certain aspect, like it's a retina institute, it's a cornea institute, then you really just get to focus on those skills and just become like the best expert in those skills. And yeah, some people are like that. They don't want to do general optometry and they don't want to focus on every part of the eye exam. They just want to do, the part of the eye that, interests them the most.
Yeah.
This would be a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
On the downside, I find that, well, actually, this is actually a con we forgot to mention for corporate optometry or in a retail setting as well, but also in a surgical setting. You probably have less flexibility in your patient schedule.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of intense cases. So you might have to be on call. You might have to work on weekends and holidays, also in a retail setting.
Yeah. The mall never closes.
Yeah, the mall never closes, guys. The mall never closes. And people will show up.
Yes.
Okay. New Year's Eve, 5 p.m. Someone's trying to come in. Like, honestly, that happens. And then, as a surgical center, someone's bleeding. Someone's got a retinal detachment on New Year's Day. Like, you're never going to just have that relaxed.
I just remember thinking like, oh, people are like, oh yeah, it's like a long weekend. Nope, not for you. Not for you,
not
honey.
at all. Not at all.
No.
And so again, for a surgical center, keep that in mind too. If you love to spend time with your family, if you love to travel or just have those like little road trips to explore Canada, you're going to have to bring that on-call phone with you, most likely. And just a very high patient volume again. So, make sure you have good running shoes and lots of healthy foods so you get lots of oxygen in your body to handle the fast-paced environment.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably not a con for everybody. For me, that's definitely, my eye exams are like 45 minutes. I'm very slow paced.
She's doing BV testing on every single patient.
Literally.
No, I love that. I think also like, obviously we didn't touch too much on this, but holidays and travel time. I remember in my contract at a corporate setting, they were trying to limit how much travel time I had. And I don't think that's allowed.
Really? No.
Right?
That, you know what, for anyone listening, that is probably going to be a podcast episode because there are so many things about contracts that we can share with you guys so that you're not signing something, first of all, illegal.
Yeah.
And something that, is unfair. But maybe we'll put a pin in that.
Yeah.
Just to kind of keep the suspense.
It's very different in the States and in Canada, but you are an independent contractor.
And then speaking of independent contractor, we have one last practice modality to share.
Yeah. So this kind of ties in to corporate setting, but it's a little different. We wanted to talk about, your mom and pop side-by-side optical setting. There's a ton of these out there, not necessarily chains, but sometimes they have a few different locations. And I know Amrit did work in a setting like this.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's the similarity with a corporate setting where you aren't focused on optical sales. you're really more focused on those examinations. Oftentimes you do get a daily minimum or a very high cut of what you are producing. And you do usually have a pretty steady patient flow. I would assume also more so on weekends.
Mm-hmm.
But this does sometimes, it's sometimes nice to have that steady patient flow, that steady income coming right out of school, even if it's just a couple days a week. I kind of wish I had looked into doing something like this a couple days a week instead of your more classic corporate setting, because I feel like I would have been happier.
Guys, I'm telling you, I think I've almost done it all except for a surgical center.
Yeah.
So when I was out my first year in the real world, I worked 7 days a week at 4 different practices.
Yeah.
Okay. There's 7 days in a week and I made it work. And yeah,
please
this
don't do
one
that.
was, I know, don't do that. Do not do that. You will end up in depression for sure. No, Alexa, you're right. It is a little different than a corporate retail setting. What I loved about this opportunity to work with a mom and pop optical was that I was the only OD there because I was leasing that exam room from their optical space. And I created my schedule. I created the exam fees. I created what services would be provided there. And I did my direct billing and took payments all by myself. So it was nice. Anything that I made 100%, I took away on my own. And I didn't have to worry about the optical setting at all. So it did help me to kind of prep to become a practice owner. Now I know being a practice owner is like 90% different than what I did initially. But, I had to learn how to register for all these insurance plans so that I could do direct billing. I had to learn how to bill OHIP by myself. I bought a Square payment terminal and, I learned how to take payments and I learned where to buy dilation drops from, like what wholesaler to, I learned all those things, which I loved. And you know what? I lied. I kind of made my own schedule because I did let them know when I would be available to come in. But the cons are still, you are tied to that optical in a sense. Like, obviously, you're not in business with them by any means, but your business only thrives with their business and their business only thrives with your business. So if they're open on weekends, obviously they wanted me there on weekends.
Yeah.
And so I felt pressured to work on weekends. They wanted late evenings. I felt pressured to stay until 7 or 8 p.m. on late evenings. They were in a competitive area with other chain opticals charging very low, about $65 for an eye exam. So what did I have to do? Obviously, I'm an independent optometrist and I can make the decision on my own. But what did I do? I was pressured to have $65 eye exams.
Right.
And that's what I did in 2020 when I came out of school.
Yeah.
I was charging $65 because the optical one street down was charging $60 and I was charging $65. And 2 years later, the opticals are charging $80 in that area. I'm charging $85. You would think about that situation to say, well, you're the OD, you're independent. The optical should not be influencing your decision to make the exam fees. But I'm telling you, when you come out of school, there will be times when you feel pressured, you feel guilty, you feel like you have to do something for that optician owner or corporate owner to not have them upset. You might feel pressured to lower your standards, lower your exam fees, change your schedule for them. Yeah, that was really the hardest part and a big con. Because if I wanted to charge, let's say, $100 for my eye exam in 2020, and the other location was charging $60, I mean, the optical owners were just like, there's no way we're going to get patients in the door, right? Like, we're not going to get business. And yeah, you guys got to really watch out for that stuff. And that's why I left eventually. I'm still working there once a month to help the owner because, again, their patient flow is a little bit slower and they don't have another doctor to take over. But, I'm still there once a month charging $90 for an eye exam there.
Right. And you know your worth because you do not charge that at your other clinics.
No, at my own private practice, I charge $165, and that's based on the calculations we've done, right? With how much our equipment costs and the time. And at the private practice I work at as an associate, the eye exam is $174.
Yeah.
Like I am charging almost half at that other location, but you get the pressure and you feel bad. ODs are nice. We are nice people by default, right?
Right.
So that's a huge con, I find, is just, you might feel guilty. It's a retail setting. You need to adjust. But the pros were definitely still great. I learned how to be independent. I learned how to manage equipment, products, payments by myself. And I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't change that experience. I had no regrets. Like absolutely none.
Yeah. And I think too, like we didn't talk about this previously, but it's so important to know what the optical setting is, what products are being sold there. And a lot of the times the products you're prescribing aren't being sold there. Like, so I'm such a fan of anti-fatigues. I think you are too.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being so frustrated that like I had to tell the patient, you cannot get what I think is best for you here.
Yep. I've said that.
You can't get myopia control lenses at a lot of these places. Prism even sometimes.
Yep.
Right?
100%.
And so I think that's another point to touch on.
So we went through a lot of practice modalities, and there are probably even other modalities that honestly we didn't touch upon because optometry is growing. There's even telehealth optometry now in, some provinces and things like that. But again, these are our personal experiences that we wanted to throw out there. There is no right or wrong modality for you. And like we said, you're probably going to end up changing modalities as you graduate and, throughout the years. So hopefully what we've shared helps you to just, navigate you in one path versus the other. But whatever path you choose, you're definitely going to love the career and the profession.
Yeah. We're here to educate, not to discourage. And I think jump in, start somewhere. Don't stress too much about where you end up at the beginning because most likely you will not be there.
Yeah, at the end.
A year, 2 years, 3 years later. So we really want to encourage you guys to kind of try out different modalities and find what fits best for you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Future Focus, the NextGEN OD Canada podcast.
You can find us on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. For episode summaries and more resources, visit us at eyecarebusiness.ca.
Be sure to follow NextGEN OD on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn for updates, news, and more insights into the world of optometry.
We'd like to give a special thanks once again to our episode sponsor, I Recommend, for supporting this podcast and the next generation of optometrists across Canada.
Until next time, stay focused on your future.